Hello to everyone that is here. And you can pass it along to people who aren't if you want to. I'm Jared Johnson, the Jared J. Back with me once again, Talmadge Roger Varnado.
The third.
The third. We are staying on topic with our NBA-related discussions. Today we're going to be discussing our top 10 shooting guards in NBA history. And as we've said many times, I don't know his list. He does not know mine. These are simply our opinions. There's going to be great players that get left out, and that is understandable. So you can agree, disagree, or I guess those are the options, or be indifferent. But these are our opinions, our lists. Yeah, those are the three options.
I'm trying to think of another.
I mean, that's kind of encompasses everything. So, Talmadge, why don't you kick us off? Why don't you give us your number 10 and number 9?
All right, my number 10 is Ray Allen. Deadly shooter, good defender. I don't think he gets credit for being as good an all-around basketball player as he actually was. But, of course, he played a great basketball player in a movie, so...
Which we discussed in a previous episode.
That gives some credence to what I'm saying. And very fluid player, too. Not a lot of wasted motion, very economical scorer, hit big shots, was a winning player early in his career, especially a better defender than people think. Even ran some point with Seattle a little bit, not primarily, but with their second
when he had
unit.
to, though.
Yeah. So he is my number 10, and he has certainly etched his place in basketball history.
He has, indubitably.
And then my number 9 is Reggie Miller. Good length, clutch shooter, of course. Love the big game, love the big stage. He may be higher on my list, but when you're not the best basketball player in your own family, I don't know how high I can put him up.
Hello, Cheryl.
But and detractors will say he didn't bring a lot more. He didn't do a lot of passing. He wasn't a great defender. With his length, he was a better defender than people thought.
Yeah, because he posed some matchup problems.
Yeah, he could get in your way. I mean, and he got in his defensive stance, so you knew he understood how to play basketball, and he could defend a little bit, but definitely not what he was known for. But anybody can shoot the ball with the range that he could, especially at the time when he was in the league.
Yeah.
When, yes, we were starting to shoot the three, but it wasn't a part of someone's arsenal like it is now. If he played today, you're probably adding 3 to 4 more points to his points per game average. Because you're talking one shot.
Right.
And
he was one of the first guys that really went out of his way to shoot him a lot. Back then, like you said, a lot of people just weren't.
And the biggest thing I'll say about him is when you defended him, you probably had to run 10 miles in a game.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's got
constant motion.
Off picks, off screens, constantly moving. Catch it in that quick release. So that is my number 10 and number 9.
All right. We're off to a great start. I'm going to do my 10, 9, 8, and 7.
Okay.
My number 10 is not someone that's been mentioned yet, but I do have George Gervin. 6'7", 180 pounds. Did play 10 seasons, 9-time All-Star. Led the league in scoring 4 times. Had career averages of 26.2 points, 4.6 rebounds, 2.8 assists per game. Not a lot more for me to add. Just for 10 seasons, he averaged 26.2 total, and a lot of his career was without a three-point line. So, great first step. You talked about the length with Reggie Miller. Same thing with George Gervin. They were built very similarly. So, my opinion, he deserves to be on the list. I've got him at number 10.
Very good.
Number 9 is our first overlap. I do have Ray Allen.
Okay.
6'5", 205-pounder. Played 18 seasons. 10-time All-Star. He is second in career three-pointers made, 2,973. Career three-point percentage of 400, or 40%.
Okay.
Career averages of 18.9 points, 4.1 rebounds, 3.4 assists per game. You mentioned a lot of the reasons. He's more versatile than people gave credit to. Wasn't a lockdown defender, but a solid defender. Had a good first step and a deadly three-point shooter.
Yes.
He's been surpassed on the all-time list, but he is without question, indubitably, one of the deadliest three-point shooters of all time. So I've got him on my list at my number 9. My number 8 is Clyde Drexler.
Okay.
6'7", 210-pounder. Played 15 seasons, 10-time All-Star. Member of the original Olympic Dream Team. Career averages 20.4 points, 6.1 rebounds, 5.6 assists per game. Very solid all-around game. He was a very good scorer for many seasons on that Portland team. He was their go-to scorer. Also, very good passer, solid rebounder for a guard. He at one time held the NBA record for most defensive rebounds by a guard.
Okay.
I think he's still second, only to, wait. No, I think he may still have it. I started to say LeBron. LeBron's a small forward. That's a different category.
Okay.
That's a different record I was thinking about. I think Scottie Pippen had the record for most assists by a forward. That's who LeBron. My apologies. I think Clyde may still have the record for most defensive rebounds
All you gotta do is
by
ask
a guard. Yeah, we can find out that way. But yeah, I've got Clyde as my number 8. And for most of his career, when he was in his prime, he was one of the top 3 to 4 shooting guards in the league. There was times where I thought he was the second best shooting guard in the NBA. At number 7, I have my first current player. That is James Harden.
Okay.
6'5", 220 pounds. He is in his 15th season. 10-time All-Star, 6th Man of the Year, 2011-2012, League MVP, 2017-2018. Led the league in scoring 3 consecutive seasons. Led the league in assists twice. His current season statistics as of this morning, 17.3 points, 5.2 rebounds, 8.3 assists per game. Career averages as of this morning, 24.7 points, 5.6 rebounds, 7 assists per game. So I'll start by saying he started his career coming off the bench, playing with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. He was the 6th Man of the Year. Guy goes on to become a league MVP, lead the league in scoring 3 consecutive years.
Right.
You don't always see that happen. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very rare that somebody makes that transition to becoming like the bona fide superstar like he has. And the versatility. For his career, 24.7 points, 5.6 rebounds, 7 assists a game. He can impact the game in a lot of different ways. Just very solid overall player. The step back 3, kind of what he's known for. He's also got an explosive first step, which sets up the step back 3 most of the time. So, yeah, James Harden is my number 7. Talmadge, why don't you give us your 8, 7, 6, and 5?
All right. My number 8 is T-Mac, Tracy McGrady. Great scorer, and people don't realize this, great passer. Wasn't, again, a lockdown defender, but in the clutch, when the games were on the line, he didn't mind playing any defense. Good length. Actually a good leader. And the thing about it is he was the best player on any team he played for. If Tracy had remained healthy, he had back issues and later some lower leg issues. If he had remained healthy and if Yao had remained healthy, would have loved to see what they could have done.
Yeah.
But a phenomenal scorer, especially in Orlando. But in Houston, he was an all-around player. He doesn't get credit for that. My number 7 is someone you've already mentioned, one of my favorites, one of the first reasons I began watching basketball, so he's going to tell you how old I am, but the Iceman, George Gervin.
Oh, yeah.
Really and truly, you said a lot about him that, I don't need to regurgitate, but the one thing I'll add is he was truly probably the first big guard in the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, we call it 2 guard, we call it shooting guard, or we call it off guard, or we call it big guard. It's one of those 4 labels. And he was the first one at his size. And for you kids who don't know this, you might want to see some highlights so you can see that finger roll. But great score. Great score.
Very good score.
And then you said my number 6 as well? 6 and 5?
6 and 5.
All right. Well, number 6, another one you've already mentioned, Mr. James Harden. As a Rocket fan, I'm very torn. I've got my good James Harden memories, and then there was that last 20 games he played with us. But no, James is a very versatile player. People don't, and the thing I'll say about James is this that you didn't already say is people always call him he's a ball hog, it's a black hole. All those things are true, but you also mentioned he led the league in assists twice. Look how he suggested his game with the Clippers. Once they put him in as the real, without Russ, they made him the point guard. We need you to run the show. That's exactly what he's done. And he even showed it last year with Philly.
Yeah.
With Philly last year, he wasn't the big time scorer he had been in the past, but in the playoffs, I know they're going to focus on the Game 7 collapse, and he definitely had one. But in that series, he scored 40-plus points twice.
Right.
So he could still do it when he
He
needed
can turn
to.
it on whenever he wants to.
No question. Fascinating player. Wish he would have stayed in better shape, right? Because I would like to have seen what he had done. But as far as skill and just wanting to hoop and play basketball, he's at the top of the list.
Yeah.
And then you said my number 4 as well? I mean,
number
5 as well,
five,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
This is where it got tough.
Oh, yeah.
And I can already see, like, people make comments, they're probably going to say, I got this guy too low, and they might be right. I won't argue it. But I'm going to go with D-Wade.
Okay.
If D-Wade was a better pure shooter, he might be a little higher on my list. But as far as that quick first step,
oh, yeah.
the flash, they called him that for a reason. Good ball handler. Because of his size, he could actually play some point, but he was really more electric when he took the ball to the basket.
Yeah.
His shot got better as time went on. True winner. And again, if you make the argument he could be higher, you might win the argument with me because you could make the case.
Right. All right. I will do my number 6 and my number 5. At number 6, I do have Allen Iverson.
Okay.
6 foot, 165 pounds. Big, muscular boy. Right up there with Anthony Mason. He did play 14 seasons, 11-time All-Star. Some of you may be confused. You may think he belongs on the point guard list, and you could make that case because he came into the league as a point guard.
And that's a tough one. That's
It
always
is.
a tough one.
And I admit, I consider him more of a shooting guard. That's why I have him here. I won't argue too hard if you want to tell me, but Jared, he's a point guard, right?
Yeah.
I won't make too much a deal out of that. He was Rookie of the Year, 96, 97. League MVP, 2000-2001. Led the league in steals 3 consecutive seasons. Led the league in scoring 4 times. Career averages 26.7 points, 3.7 rebounds, 6.2 assists, 2.2 steals per game. The biggest thing I'll say about him, one of the best crossovers in the league, one of the best handles.
Probably the best crossover.
As I say, Tim Hardaway Sr., you could maybe put in that, but arguably the best. Deadly first step. And the thing I love the thing I want to boast the most about him is, much like when I talked about Charles Barkley as a power forward, and when I mentioned Tyrone Curtis, Muggsy Bogues, Iverson's listed as 6 foot. He might be 5'10 and a half. Even if he's a true 6-footer, he averaged 26.7 points a game for his career as a 6-footer, and 3.7 rebounds, 6.2 assists, 2.2 steals. And he didn't make his living just standing outside and shooting jumpers.
Right.
As he got older and he slowed down, lost some of that explosiveness, he did do more of that. Most of his career, he was driving and trying to dunk on people. Even if he got fouled and didn't make it, he would try to dunk on Mutombo. He didn't care.
Right.
I loved his fearlessness. I loved how he would attack the basket. And again, he's tall compared to me. But for an average person, he doesn't tower over a lot of average people. Still played on the highest level, put up these kind of numbers, wasn't scared to go in and dunk in people's faces. That's why I've got him on my list and at number 6. My number 5, and this was very tough for me, just like you said with Dwayne Wade. I almost put this guy higher. I'll explain as we go why he's where he is, but my number 5 is Pistol Pete Maravich. 6'5", 197 pounds. Played 10 seasons, 5-time All-Star, All-Rookie 70-71. Led the league in scoring 76-77. Career averages of 24.2 points, 4.2 rebounds, 5.4 assists per game. The reason I say it was hard for me to not put him higher has a lot to do with what he could have been. And the reason I ranked him where he is because I can't prove what could have been. And the reason I say that is he averaged 24.2 points a game. He only had a 3-point line his final year in the league after he'd blown his knee.
Yeah, he didn't play much then
and
anyway,
he didn't play a lot. That one year, he did shoot 66.7% from 3-point range. But for a lot of his career, this guy shot deep range shots.
Sure.
Because his mentality was, oh, I'm open, well, then I'm just going to shoot. Didn't matter. In fact, we're talking about the NBA, but I'm going to make the analogy. His college career, for his 3-year career at LSU, he averaged 44 points a game.
Yes.
Dale Brown, who was at one time LSU's head coach, went back and watched game footage of all of Maravich's games.
See how many 3-pointers he would have made.
See how many 3-pointers he would have made. And he said by those calculations, Maravich would have averaged 57 points a game for his career.
That's about right.
So that's why I say if he had a 3-point line, we might be talking about him as being quite a bit higher. I think he could have averaged well over 30 for his NBA career if he'd had a 3-point line. Because not only would the shots he made have counted as 3-pointers, a lot of them, if he knew there was value in shooting from out there, he probably would shoot more of them. So there's no telling what kind of points the guy could have really put up had he played longer. Also, way ahead of his time with the ball handling, the passing. I've even heard Magic Johnson say, I got a lot of my moves from watching Pistol Pete. The guy's handle and his ball fakes were just stuff that nobody was doing at that time in the league. He just came along and revolutionized the way you could get around people. I even saw him one time, and then I'll wrap this up on Maravich. I saw him one time dribbling the ball. He was coming up on half court. He saw one of his teammates streaking towards the basket, decided to throw a pass to him. Instead of throwing it overhead or like this, there's a defender coming to his right. So Maravich cradled the ball in his right hand, went behind the back. I'm not making this up. He went behind the back, whipped a pass from half court right on target for a dunk. I've never seen anybody else even attempt such a thing.
He was doing that in high school.
And he was good enough, yeah.
His father taught him would
Press,
make,
his dad, yeah.
No question. There were times when his father would be driving alongside him on the way to school and
have him dribble the ball out the window, right? Yeah, and I've heard stories about that as well. So he is my number 5. We're now at the halfway point. We're going to go ahead and take a break, hear a word from our sponsor. Then Talmadge and I will be right back. And so will you, right?
You know, I didn't even have Pistol on my list.
Hello. My name is Montgomery the Apples III. Flying by the seat of your pants. Are you the type of person that uses this phrase? And if so, then why? It is such a ridiculous notion. Have you ever known anyone to fly by the seat of their pants? No, you have not! You may have known someone to fly in an airplane or a helicopter, or even to fly in a hot air balloon or a blimp, but never to fly by the seat of their pants. Therefore, why even say it? I am Montgomery the Apples III, and these are my thoughts. Have a good day! Welcome back. For those of y'all that are still with us, thank you. Talmadge and I are still here. We've reached the midway point of our top 10 shooting guards of all time. We have both went through our number 5. All right, I'm going to give my number 4 and number 3.
Okay.
At number 4, I have a guy that Talmadge has already mentioned. That is Dwayne Wade. 6'4", 220 pounds, played 16 seasons, 13-time All-Star, All-Rookie 03-04, All-Star Game MVP 2010, led the league in scoring 08-09, Finals MVP in 06. We are in the Dallas area. A lot of Dallas fans don't want to think about that. He did put up career averages of 22 points, 4.7 rebounds, 5.4 assists per game. You mentioned most of it, the deadly first step, the versatility. It was very difficult for me to rank him ahead of Pete Maravich, but when I really stopped and thought about, this was the biggest factor. Dwayne sustained it for 16 seasons. Pistol did only play 10. That's kind of what it boiled down to, because their numbers are similar. Different types of players, but you can make an argument for either one of them being better.
I would make the same case. Not to give away spoilers, but Maravich is not on my list. And one of the reasons why he wasn't is I struggled with, is he a point guard? Is he a 2 guard? And I also struggled with, he played 10 years.
Yeah.
and he had a lot of injuries, and he didn't really play for any winning teams. A lot of times he was on teams because he was the ticket to buy, to get people to buy tickets.
Yeah.
But we're getting off track. But it just, that's why these lists are so curious, because
Yeah.
nobody's wrong as long as you can make your case.
Right. This
it's
is
a
your
solid
what's your
list.
case for why they belong here. So yeah, that Dwayne Wade is my number 4. My number 3 is another guy that could be on a point guard list, but I got him on my shooting guard list. You can kind of go either way. That is Jerry West. 6'3", 175 pound, played 14 seasons, 14-time All-Star, All-Star Game MVP 1972, led the league in assists 71-72, led the league in scoring 69-70, Finals MVP 1969, and some people may not know
He
this.
lost.
He is the only player in NBA history to be named Finals MVP as a member of the losing team. Lakers lost to the Celtics. I think it was in 7 games. Celtics beat them by less than 5 points.
Yes.
It came down to the final minute. All the voters had already decided Jerry West is the best player in the series, and they said, you know what, it doesn't matter. He still deserves it. Only time that's ever happened. If you've seen the NBA logo, that is Jerry West's silhouette. He had career averages of 27 points, 5.8 rebounds, 6.7 assists per game. One of the best clutch shooters of all time. Most people will tell you
Mr. Clutch.
why he's referred to as Mr. Clutch. Also, and I've said this about some guys in some previous episodes, and also about Pete Maravich, West averaged 27 points a game, never had a chance to shoot a three-pointer.
Sure enough.
What would his scoring average have been if he had? And he averaged nearly 6 rebounds and 6.7 assists a game. Phenomenal all-around player. Great court presence. Great job. Great leadership, really, too. So I've got him.
Great contributor to basketball, period.
After his career, we saw just as much great contribution, if not more, than we did during his playing time. You're 100% right about that. So that's my number 4, my number 3. Talmadge, why don't you give us your number 4 and number 3?
My number 4 is a name that you've already mentioned, Mr. Clyde Drexler. Struggled with Clyde a little. He's one of the more polarizing players for me because you could have him at 7 or 8 and I wouldn't argue it. You could have him at 4 and I wouldn't argue it, obviously, because I put him at 4. But as far as his versatility, passer, people don't really realize also how big and physical he was. A lot of players that played against him said, you don't hear people talk about his strength, but he was just so strong. And if you look at his body, it makes sense.
Yeah,
always
especially for a 2-guard.
Yes, always cut. And a lot of stuff you've already said about him, so I won't repeat it, but what I will say is this. He's the best player I've ever seen that couldn't dribble without looking at the ball. Playing it. So for that reason,
you're not joking. Head down, didn't see the rest of the floor, or you didn't think you did, but you couldn't get it from him.
And it's so funny because one of my favorite players that's not going to make anybody's top 10 list is Vernon Maxwell. So when Vernon was playing with Clyde and Robert Horry as well, they both said this when he first came to the Rockets. They were on a fast break. And they gave up on the fast break because Clyde dribbling with his head down.
It's like he don't see us anyway.
And so Clyde had to pull him aside and say, I see you. Keep going to the basket. And so from that point forward, head down. They kept on going.
What's wrong with you boys? Keep running.
Find them. So Clyde Drexler is my number 4. Number 3 is a name you've already mentioned as well. And I agree. You could put him on either the point guard list or the 2-guard list. And that's Allen Iverson. A lot of the reasons you chose Allen were the reasons I chose him. Just the fearlessness, the quick first step, the crossover, and I actually factor in off-court stuff into my list sometimes as well when I'm looking for tiebreakers. And the tiebreaker for him is the influence he had on players within the league. There's almost as many players that grew up idolizing Iverson as there was Kobe for that generation. I'd put Kobe first, obviously, but I'm saying if you go to guys in their late 20s, early 30s, late 30s now, they're saying, I'm watching basketball because of Allen
His name's going to be mentioned a lot. That is a good point. All right, so now we are down to the top 2. If you're a basketball fan and you've been listening to the names, you might have figured out now who these final 2 probably are.
They're going to match.
I'm going to give mine. I'd be interesting if they're in a different order, but we'll see. I'm going to do my number 2. and then you do your number 2, and presuming number 1 matches, we'll maybe do like we did on our small forward list. So my number 2 shooting guard of all time is Kobe Bryant, 6'6", 212-pounder. He played 20 seasons. Not going to beat that horse to death because we talked about it a lot, but to even last that long, phenomenal. 18-time All-Star, All-Rookie 96-97, 4-time All-Star Game MVP, led the league in scoring twice, league MVP 07-08, 2-time Finals MVP 09 and 2010, career averages of 25 points, 5.2 rebounds, 4.7 assists per game. Never the greatest three-point shooter, but could hit them when he needed to. He did have an 81-point game, deadly first step, tremendously athletic. Not a whole lot left, I'm going to say, about him. I'll let you talk about him some as well, because I think he's probably one of your top 2. I will ask you this, though. Do you remember the team that actually drafted him? Because it was not the Lakers. Charlotte. Do you remember who the draft day trade involved?
Vlade Divac.
There you go. I figured you remembered that, but a lot of people don't. So I was like, let me just throw that out. All right, so he is my number 2. Why don't you give us your number 2, and then we'll see if our number 1's match.
It is the same for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. But again, just like I said with Allen Iverson, for me, and I didn't even realize this, and I'm a basketball fan, it's one of the things that I knew, but when Kobe died, it really hit me. The influence he had amongst the young, because we're older, and the younger generation, like we had Jordan. Well, Kobe was the younger generation's Jordan. So it would be like if Jordan were to die for us. And I'm not even a Jordan fan, but I realize his influence.
It would still hit us.
You're right. You'd be like, he's iconic. And so I knew it, but I hate to say it took his death to, wow, this guy was so far reaching. And again, not that on some people's lists this wouldn't matter, but for me, sometimes it does. Off the court, what he did even after his career, getting involved in movies, getting involved in music, getting involved in motivation,
He won an Academy Award for being a producer of he won Best Animated Short Film for something called The Basketball Life.
And to me, that's a sign of not only was he a winner on the court, the reason why he's so successful on the court is because he was winner off the court. And then as far as being tenacious, never backing down from a challenge, the closest thing to Michael Jordan. So
100% agree.
We could talk about stats all we want, but I think you get my point.
Yeah.
Kobe's influence is the reason why he's number 2.
I concur with everything that you say. All right, so I feel like we might have the same number 1. On the count of 3, let's say our number 1's. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Rex Chapman. Oh, we got Jeff Hornacek and Rex Chapman. Y'all might not have expected that. I think we can both agree it is Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
No question.
I'll let you kick things off about him, and then I'll add.
I don't know what we could say that people don't already know. As I said before, I'm a Hakeem guy, so in that era, Hakeem's better.
Magic's my favorite.
Right.
So.
I knew he wasn't, but I'm going to say that. But even I know the impact Jordan had, being undefeated in the finals, captivating audiences, again, contributing to saving the league. What we talked about. Julius kept the league around for Larry and for Magic to save. Once they saved it, now Jordan took it to the level of international fame.
He took it to a much higher level,
That's all you need to say. If they were ever to redo the logo and take it away from Mr. West, it'd be Michael Jordan.
Who else would it be?
Period.
Yeah.
Quick first step, tenacious defender.
Yes.
And I remember one year, I believe B.J. Armstrong was still on the team, but whoever was the starting point guard got hurt for a series of like 11 or 12 games. Michael slid over to point and averaged a triple-double.
I think it was before B.J. Armstrong. Okay. If I remember, that's when Doug Collins was still the coach.
Might have been, but
he had a triple-double in like 7 out of 8 games.
Right, it was unreal.
It was crazy, yeah.
You could have put him at small forward. He would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Winners win, and that's ultimately what he always did.
And a lot of the same reasons. I won't exhaust everybody with his stats. If you know who Michael Jordan is, you know. But he did lead the league in scoring 10 times, which is phenomenal. Played 15 seasons. Felt like longer if you didn't really pay attention. But he retired twice and came back. As of right now, he hasn't made an announcement for a comeback. So his third retirement.
Wouldn't put it past him.
I was going to say, that's why I said as of right now. Thus far, his third retirement seems to have stuck. Was Defensive Player of the Year, 87-88, 5-time league MVP, 6-time finals MVP. And as I mentioned in a previous episode about Scottie Pippen's greatness, Jordan never won a title without Pippen. Pippen, Horace Grant, those guys would have probably never made the finals without Michael Jordan. Let's just be realistic about that. Career averages 30.1 points, 6.2 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 2.3 steals a game. He's not only arguably the most dynamic offensive player that we've seen as far as just breaking people down one-on-one. My opinion, he's probably the best defensive shooting guard in league history.
I would go along with that.
Alvin Robertson might be somebody I'd mention next, but Jordan was not only a decent defender, he would lock people down, and he loved the challenge. He wasn't going to back down from anything. He wanted to lock down the other team's best player and score 30 on them.
And so impressive because you could switch a lot with those Chicago teams.
Oh, yeah.
If Jordan didn't take you, Pippen would. Because
Exactly.
they're both around. Pippen's a little taller, but they're 6'6", 6'7".
Right.
So, yeah, that added to the mystique as well because they could switch and you never knew who was going to guard.
And during that third three-peat, they had another guy who's not quite on the list, Ron Harper, who's also 6'6", who's also a good defender and a good ball handler. Those three guys on the perimeter could lock down any other guys, any other team's great offensive player. And we didn't do this yet, but speaking of Ron Harper, who's some other guys? For me, some guys that were tough to leave off. You may have noticed Reggie Miller wasn't on my list.
He wasn't, yeah.
That was not easy. Mitch Richmond's another great one. Didn't quite make my list. He's one of my biggest ones. Some of y'all may not know Mitch Richmond, but yeah, great shooter, great first step, a very athletic guy.
Strong.
Very
His
strong.
upper body strength.
Yeah.
He might have been the strongest player, pound for pound, upper body in the league.
Possibly.
He was a rock.
He was
And they called him
amongst
that.
them, yeah. So those are a few of the ones that were the toughest for me. Joe Dumars is another one that comes to mind. Klay Thompson is one that if he keeps playing the way he has been, he might crack this list someday.
Maybe not this year, but
We'll see how his career up to this point, and we'll
Yes.
see how he keeps going. Didn't quite make my list either, but those guys I just mentioned were all guys I considered that just didn't quite make my list.
Yeah, of those you mentioned, I didn't think of Dumars and I should have. But again, Mitch Richmond. And then one that some people might not agree with, but he was a real winner. And if you saw him early in his career, you saw him as an offensive player. I don't think Dennis Johnson gets enough.
Oh,
credit.
yeah.
Again, no, I'm not saying top 10, but defensively and early on with Seattle, he was an offensive player as well.
That's the
and
thing.
A great defender.
He went from being a great offensive player with Seattle to plugging into a team that already had a great offense and still being a great player.
One of the first trades I remember as a kid that hurt my feelings, he was traded for Paul Westphal. And I like both players. I'm like, why can't they just stay where
they
I was
stay
like
where they
6
are.
or 7. I'm like, why are they changing teams?
But why would they do that?
Exactly. So, no, good point. I'm glad you brought up Mitch and Joe and some of these other guys because they deserve mentioning.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Well, we are about to land the plane on that discussion. Thank you all so much for stopping by to join us. If you like the video, please click the like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. It will make it easier for me to continue bringing you this type of content and alert you when I've uploaded new videos. But Thomas, before we go, I do have a question for you.
You always do.
I never run out. Who do you think would win arm wrestling between Steve Buscemi and Haley Steinfeld?
I would take Buscemi at anything.
Oh, anything.
No matter what.
Riding unicycles,
He wins.
swallowing knives.
He wins.
Buscemi.
He wins.
Oh, man. See, you give me all kinds of ideas now. I'm actually going to go with Haley Steinfeld. Do you know who she is?
Yes, and that's the other reason why I went with Buscemi.
Oh, because you do know her and you would go with Buscemi.
No question.
I'm going to go with Haley Steinfeld simply because I think he would underestimate her. He also wouldn't want to hurt her. She's a young lady. He doesn't want to embarrass her. He's just going to go along with it. He's going to underestimate her. She's going to be trying her hardest. And one look in her eyes, he gets distracted by her beauty and she overtakes him.
This has
There's
nothing to
my
do with
case.
basketball, guys. I don't
Not
know.
even a little bit. But this is just the random stuff that pops into my mind sometimes, as Talmadge is well aware. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Talmadge, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to land the plane on this. I'm Jared Johnson, the Jared J. for Talmadge Roger Vernado III. Thanks for stopping by. I hope y'all have a great week, and hope I see you again real soon.